Welcome to another Countryside Adventures video. In this video, we are going to make a couple of Colin's arrows that he actually uses for NASP, which is the National Archery in Schools program. And the reason why we started doing this is you can actually buy pre-prepared Easton Genesis arrows. And there's really nothing wrong with those arrows. They're great, especially for a student that's just starting out. And you can't beat the sport of archery to get, a young person acclimated into it. But as we participated more and as we started learning more about the actual program, and we really started reading through in detail the rule book that has to do with the different aspects of the rules and the gear, what could be used, what couldn't be used, we started learning that you can actually change the fletchings of the arrows, and you can use a maximum of a 1.5 degree helical on those fletchings. And there are several fletchings out there that are legal to use.
Okay, I have to apologize a little bit here. When Colin and I started fletching his arrows, we just thought that we would grab a camera and audio gear and just start recording and just kind of share it in case there was a student out there that was interested in fletching their own arrows. And at the time, I didn't even really think to hop online and really share where the resources were for some of these rules and some of the changes that you can make. So I put this together really quick so that you could follow up with the source of the information over at the NASP website and go through their rules and see what might apply to you and just kind of experiment and have fun with this a little bit. So we'll go ahead and get started. And if you just Google NASP Archery rules, and the very first thing that is going to come up is going to be nasprules.org. And the second line down in the search engine is going to be the link to the rules. So if we click on that, and the first thing that's going to come up on the website is a couple of PDF links. One is going to be for bullseye and one is going to be for 3D. And Colin does shoot both of them, and both of the rules are the same, so they're both applicable. So we'll just use the top link and we'll go to bullseye. We start scrolling down through the rules. We're just going to have the initial index. So if we scroll down to page 5, about halfway down that page is where the equipment rules begin. But if we scroll down to page 7, about a quarter of the way down the page is where the technical aspects of the arrows begin. And I'll just run through this really quick. Only the original Easton aluminum 1820 arrows approved for NASP may be used. The length of the arrow shaft must be the standard NASP length. When you purchase these arrows, they're going to come already pre-cut. It doesn't matter if you're setting these up yourself or if you're using the pre-fletch. They're already going to be the correct length. So there's no worries there as long as you're using the 1812 arrows. A readily accessible replacement must be on hand. So basically, in other words, if you're going to shoot NASP, normally you shoot 5 arrows, and what you want to do is at least have a minimum of 1 extra arrow in the event of a fletching gets torn, a knot gets knocked out, a field tip gets damaged, anything like that. So build at least 6 arrows if you are going to build arrows, and most sets that you buy already pre-set up do come with 6, so you'll be good to go there. Arrow nocks must be the Easton end nocks currently used by Easton to produce the 1820 Genesis arrows. That's pretty easy. Whenever you purchase the arrows, you can just ask your archery supply shop about the correct end nocks, and end just refers to the size. Normally the sizes are represented by a letter, and it's pretty easy as you dive off into it to start determining what fits what. There's only a few selections, but the Easton end nocks will fit perfectly with the 1820 arrows. So that's an easy one there. Most knowledgeable archery shops will be able to get you the correct nocks to make sure that you have the correct setup for your arrows. Arrow points must be the NASP standard currently in use by Easton in production with the 1820 aluminum Genesis arrows. That's an easy one, and we'll cover the glue-in process during the video, so that's pretty straightforward. And line 3.4.5 gets into a little bit more of the technical aspect of it. So arrow vanes must be 3 soft plastic 2.5 inch to 3 inch long and between 0.4 and 0.6 in height, attached to the shaft or wrap, with a straight offset approximately of 1.5 degrees. Vanes may be any brand, shape, or cut, but must be within the listed dimensions. New archery products, NASP Speed-Fletch is also permitted for use. So this is where Colin and I really started diving off into this, is with the fletching size and with the helical. So when we started reading about the 1.5 degree and started really paying attention to what came pre-fletched on the arrows, we thought, okay, there's some room to kind of play around with this and have some fun with it and see if we can do a little bit of improving with accuracy once we kind of really had the fundamentals locked down, or at least he felt like he had the fundamentals locked down. And one of the things that I thought was kind of cool is that you are allowed to use a wrap. It states it right there in the rules. And on our initial build, we actually did apply a wrap. We used a knock-on archery wrap, and it looked really cool. It's kind of a black and white theme. But honestly, as Colin shot, his feelings about it was that the little Genesis bow with just 20 pounds of draw weight and the short axle length on it, it just really doesn't have that much kinetic energy. And his feeling about it was that even that little bit of weight from the wrap didn't really do anything for stabilization of the arrow. He felt like it was kind of affecting the stabilization. So we switched over to just going ahead and applying the fletchings directly to the arrow, and he preferred the way that shot much more. So we went ahead and just stuck with that. But if you have an archer that is set on using a wrap, or maybe shoots a little different style, maybe has a different draw length, and they want to use a wrap, that is something that you could definitely look into. It's allowed in the rules, and I thought it was pretty cool that, you know, a student could personalize some of their arrows with the wrap. So we played around with it. We decided not to go with the wrap. So that's something you could kind of consider as you go through, and you may want to consider a wrap for your arrows to customize them and kind of personalize them. It's just going to be a personal preference. So that may be something you can look at for your application. And this one's pretty straightforward. Archers must be able to identify their personal arrows. So hence the black and white theme with Colin. His stuff, he likes the black and white. So that's what we did. And again, back to that personalized theme, arrow shafts may be marked, crested, or wrapped, or taped above the midpoint towards the nock. So again, we played around with the wraps. We just decided not to do it, but it's definitely something you can look into. And then the rest of it is just that the archers had to supply their own arrows for tournaments and things like that. Nothing too detailed there. If we scroll all the way down, this entire rule sheet is only 13 pages. So what Colin and I did was we actually printed the section of the rules out, and we just folded the rules, put it in an envelope, and slid it under the foam in his NASP archery case. And so when he goes to a tournament, anything like that, if there's ever an official, a coach, anything that, you know, calls out, maybe there's a situation, we have the rules on hand. And obviously our job isn't to, you know, call out anyone for any sort of rules. I mean, it's a fun sport. It's not to be taken, you know, too overly serious, but we just wanted to make sure that we were kind of dotting our I's and crossing our T's and staying within the rules and doing what we were supposed to. So we just put that together for it real quick. And actually on the flip side of that, we've had several officials and coaches and, you know, parents, participants, things like that, that we've shared information with. They thought it was super cool, and some of the parents have even started kind of experimenting around with their students. So we're just kind of spreading the word and having fun with it. So this is something we want to share with you, and really everyone's been very accepting of it and just thought it was kind of cool that we were experimenting within the rules just to see what we could do with accuracy and improve the best that we could. So with that, we want to share this information with you. So back to the arrow build.
The fletchings that we are actually using are going to be the AAE. These are the elite plastic fletchings, and so these are 100% legal for NASP. And additionally, the pre-fletched arrows, they really leave a little bit to be desired as far as how much helical you can use. And again, we can legally use up to a 1.5 degree helical. And the reason Colin and I really started thinking about this in depth is we prefer quite a bit of helical on our hunting arrows. We're actually shooting a 4-fletch at about 2.5 degrees. So that's pretty aggressive for what it is. And one of the things that we thought may help improve his accuracy is going from a maybe like a 3/4 to like a 1 degree helical. And they're kind of inconsistent with the ones that you buy pre-ready to go. So we actually bought a Bitzenberger jig, and we had it set up at 1.5 degrees, and we started setting these up ourselves. So we're just going to walk you through the process really quick as to how we build his arrows for the NASP tournament. So first thing is we're going to need all of our equipment, and for his NASP arrows, this is one that is actually complete. And so as you can see, he likes to do the white and the black. That's kind of his theme. And so we've got 2 white and a black. And when you purchase these arrows, they are going to come with the insert already pre-installed. So you do not have to buy the insert. Now you will have to buy nocks for these arrows, and you will also have to buy the field tips for these arrows. So with that, we have field tips. And these are just the Genesis field tips. And also we have new nocks to go with these. So our nocks fit in like so. And one of the things that we learned from this is we actually like to glue in his nocks That could be a kind of an added benefit, and it can be a handicap depending on your situation. And the reason why I say that can be a benefit or a handicap is if another arrow happens to hit this nock, believe me, it is going to break it off, and you're going to have to go to your backup arrows, which isn't really a big deal as long as you make sure you have backup arrows. And if it wasn't glued in, you know, it's a good chance that it may come out or may have enough flex in it that it won't break. But if it's glued in and it gets hit, it's pretty much a sure shot that it's going to break. Now, the advantage to it, and you know, like with everything, there's a give and take. Now, the advantage to that is, you know, you don't have to worry about when you nock an arrow, you shoot the arrow about the nock coming off of, you know, once it's released from the string, anything like that. It's going to release really consistent off of the string. So that's kind of the advantage and disadvantage. We chose to glue ours in. We like to use the AAE Max Impact for the field tips, and that has worked really well. And for our fletchings and the nocks, we like to use the AAE Max Bond. This is a really good product for the fletchings. And we actually use this same glue for all of our arrows, for whether it's a hunting arrow or whether it is a NASP arrow, anything like that. We use the Max Bond on all of our stuff. Okay, first step in the process is to clean everything. So that is super simple. The AAE Max Clean wipes work perfect for that. And these come out just like a simple cleaning tissue. And I don't know if you can see that on there or not, but there is some debris on it. So make sure that you clean all of your shafts good, because there can be debris on them from the cutting process, shipping, storage, all that sort of thing. I like to set the wipes off to the side so that they stay clean. And next, I like to take a little bit of the AAE Max Bond glue and just put it on the very end of the nock. It doesn't take much. We just want things to really stay in place. So I think you can see that okay. So I've just got on the very end of it. And the idea here is we insert it into that arrow. We want that glue to slide all the way down that nock shaft. But what that will do is it'll spread it out, and we won't have any excess around where the insert and the nock meet. Once that nock is seated in there, we can actually go ahead and grab one of our field tips. And just like we did on our nock, I like to put the Max Impact adhesive out on the very end. Now this stuff is pretty thick. It goes on almost like a tar consistency. You can see it string off there a little bit. And it has ridges that adhesive will go down into as you force it down into the shaft. So we're gonna put it down in there. And you can see a little squeezing out around that. So as it sets up, we're gonna wanna get off any excess. And that's going to start to sit up really quick. So that's our field tips inserted. And now we can go ahead and get our arrows into the Bitzenberger. Once we've got our arrow jigged up in our Bitzenberger, we can go ahead and pull out our fletchings. We've got 2 white, and we have a single black fletching. Now for this setup on our hunting arrows, we actually come up just a little bit forward on it, and we have a mark on it, but this is pretty straightforward. And for the proper distance, it is what it is. If you just set the fletching all the way back to the backline position, that is the correct length for the NASP arrows. Now, what I personally like to do, AE kind of gives some a little bit different instructions. Some of it you may not have to prime, some of it you may not have to clean. For these, I do like to take the primer pen and just give it a very simple wipe down it in just a second to dry. And then we're going to use our Max Bond, And I like to hold it in two hands. And what I'll do is sort of cradle it. I'll use my other hand to set on top of my finger so that it's sort of resting on top. I'm not just free floating in the air. And I'm going to start down at the tail end. I'm going to start working my way down. Leaving a smooth line of glue. And with these arrows, one of the things that I like to do is I actually like to hold it on the bottom and squeeze it. And the reason why that is these arrows really honestly don't seem to be as true as, like, say, our Axis hunting arrows. They do tend to have a little bit more of an inconsistent as far as straightness goes. So if you'll kind of squeeze this together and hold it in position, it kind of helps bond everything in place. And I think that's way better than the inconsistencies of buying the pre-packaged. And once you really start getting into this program, the consistency is going to be the key. So that's kind of the reason why I like to pinch this together and hold it in place to get everything bonded appropriately. So that glue sets up really fast. And just for reference, you can already see the helical on that. And we're going to rotate one click counterclockwise. Grab our next fletching. And again, down with the primer pin. That only takes a few seconds. Onto our black fletching. And the black may show up much better how that glue is on there. And here's how I like to finish these off. First thing is I like to take our wipe and go between and get any of that excess glue wiped out. We're going to get as much of that out of there as possible. And then I like to go back with the Max Bond glue. And I like to put just a very small amount at the back and at the front of each fletching. And that will make sure that they don't get knocked off, they don't get drug off, they stay on straight, and they will fly true. And you can probably see on camera, they have a great helical, and that is about as straight as you can get. The knock is lined up perfectly with the fletchings so that we don't have any interference with the riser or the arrow rest. And that is how we build our NASP, or National Archery in Schools Program arrows. So we appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If this helped you out at all, get out and build some arrows. Please do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you outdoors.